This flaming chalice has a long history, going back 600 years before the Reformation to one dissident Catholic priest from Czechoslovakia who was burned at the stake because he went against his church superiors and served wine to his parishioners at communion. It's a long story. But his followers developed the figure of the flame and the chalice to honor their beloved priest. His name was John Hus, and his followers were called the Hussites. He once said this to them: "Therefore, faithful Christian, seek the truth, hear the truth, learn the truth, love the truth, speak the truth, adhere to the truth, and defend the truth, even unto death." Fast forward to World War II, when the Unitarian Service Committee was working among refugees in Europe and needed a graphic icon, they asked a refugee from Czechoslovakia to develop one for them. Reaching back into his own national history, he felt a resonance between the Hussites and the Unitarians he had come to know, and did us the honor of bestowing their icon on us. And John Hus and his words came in the bargain. Seek the truth, hear the truth, learn the truth, love the truth, speak the truth, adhere to the truth, and defend the truth, even unto death. That word truth is liberally sprinkled through our hymns and affirmations, especially older ones. The free and responsible truth for search and meaning is how we put it in our purposes and principles these days. In the past generation or so, we've talked less about the search for truth and more about the spiritual quest, I think out of the humbling realization that truth, once you get past math, or that 4-year-old with chocolate on his face who's insisting that he didn't have any, that truth thing is a little trickier than we had once imagined. We discovered that we were kidding ourselves when we claimed to be operating only on reason and observation and science, even we folks who value those things and usually try to limit our beliefs to those which are consistent with those things. We realized that we all have beliefs that we hold dear, not because they can be proven, but because they strike us as useful and beautiful and as, well, true. And that those beliefs are an important part of the meaning of our lives, even though they are not and will not ever be universally shared. We came to understand that we had grown up in different communities. We would therefore have absorbed different sets of beliefs to weigh as we matured, and we came to understand that not everyone ever does weigh and attest to the assumptions of their childhood. We come to realize that our observations and even our reason are more often tainted by unconscious and the irrational world than we had really ever realized. And so we're a little more careful and humble than we used to be about what we mean when we use that word, truth. Unitarian Universalists, who often cite reason as one of their guidelines, generally confine their spiritual beliefs to the non-rational rather than the irrational. That is to say, we believe many things that science can't ever know, like the inherent worth and dignity of human beings, for instance, not to mention God or an afterlife. What we don't usually believe in is things that the predominance of science discounts, like, for instance, that the earth is only a few thousand years old. You notice I didn't say that science disproves. Science is also an ongoing search for what is true, and only a few things of a mathematical nature couldn't be overturned by new knowledge. Just ask Mr. Einstein about that. Smart as he was, and in spite of how much he contributed to human understanding of our physical universe, he believed that chance did not figure in the fundamental workings of the universe. God does not play dice, is how he put it, using God in a metaphorical sense. But quantum physics, now widely accepted as the way things are, as established scientific knowledge, proved Einstein wrong. Who is Einstein to say what God can and cannot do, quipped one of his fellow scientists, also asking metaphorically. A good point. Humility about truth is always a good idea. But paralysis, no. In spite of understanding how much we can never know, how often our brains mislead us, how culturally relative many important things are, most of us still care about the truth, about facts, about lies. We understand that society and culture run on a shared understanding of reality, that our relationships require that we can trust people to be faithful to that understanding. I once cared for a mentally ill woman who was simply not capable of telling me the truth about certain very painful parts of her life, although in many ways she was a very truthful person, steeped in the same UU values that we all are. Once I understood her issues about some subjects, we got along pretty well. I knew what kinds of her statements were going to be true and which, if I was going to act on them, I better check out for myself. And I bet in smaller and larger ways, you do the same. You know who in your family tells whoppers, who among your friends can't be counted on to tell you an inconvenient truth, whose gossip is probably true, and whose you need to check out before you act on it. Because human beings, they tell lies. It's not to say that's a good thing. We need to trust each other, and even harmless lies or social lies, even when they're told to avoid hurt, still do a little hurt. They tear just a little bit at the fabric of our society that requires that we trust each other. They make it just a little harder for us to make up our own minds about what is going on outside our very small range of experience. In particular, democracy and other forms of advanced human cooperation depend on the ability of participants to count on each other, to play by the rules of truth. In the past year, there's been much hand-wringing about public truthfulness, especially in politicians. Not that politicians of any stripe have ever been well known for their truth-telling. But the problem seems to have grown from shading the truth to what we might call bald-faced lies, from exaggerating what you can probably accomplish to statements made in the face of objective fact and historical record to the contrary. It has been disturbing, and it seems to be a trend. The internet got a lot of blame for this, that fake news is hard to tell from real news, that photo doctoring has just gone too far, that groups of people reinforce nonsense for each other, and most of us do not go very far outside of our political and philosophical comfort zone anymore. What with the near infinite selection of news available to us, we Albuquerqueans no longer read the same newspaper, nor do we watch the same 3 TV networks like we did when I was a kid. Instead, we silo ourselves with others who are inclined to believe what we believe. There are also some who blame academia, and in particular postmodern philosophy, which posits that truth is contextual, never really true, and that statement, all truth is relative, is true of all statements except that one. And that's no doubt a part of the problem. But let's stop and remember that fake news, known by such names as propaganda when done by governments, and advertising when done to sell products, and tabloids when sold at the grocery checkout counter, has actually been around for a long time. It seems to me that the epidemic of lying by politicians, who are not only exaggerating, but, well, really lying, also by businesses, who are lying not only to cover up mistakes, but seem to have been on a campaign lately to make money by evading the law and lying all the way. All this is a symptom of the winner-take-all philosophy we've bought in so seriously these days, in everything from permitting billionaires to mega Powerball. Winning then becomes everything, and so rare, and the consequences of not winning become so dire that any means to winning becomes acceptable. Lying, cheating, stealing, they become just smart ways to win. They give you bragging rights, not a bad conscience. The lying part of all this has gotten so bad that a new phrase was coined and officially crowned by the Oxford Dictionary folks: post-truth. Post-truth is relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. It's an interesting comment on the phenomenon of lying because it puts the emphasis not on what those in power do, but how the rest of us view it. Not accusing some people of damaging the social or political fabric, but rather commenting that appeals to what people already think and feel are more persuasive than facts. In other words, post-truth is our fault. There are two sides to every story, aren't there? Lies aside, misinformation and intuition have always dominated the human condition, but now is as good a time as ever to try and understand what drives our deviation from facts. Why are we so often wrong? One useful answer is that the mind relies on rules of thumb, which helps us make quick judgments, but also leaves us prone to frequent errors. For instance, we see confident people as competent, with the side effect that a lie told with great assurance is likely to mislead us. We are much more attracted to statements that conform to what we already think is true than statements that prove to us that we've been wrong all this time, something that scientists call confirmation bias, and yes, you are that way too. We find statements about immediate and concrete consequences much more compelling than statements about vague and long-term ones, the basic issue with addressing climate change. And when it comes to lying, you may think that good old-fashioned morality and family values prohibited lying, and that the epidemic of lying is a shocking new development in the human community, but actually not so much. Old-fashioned morality and family values prohibits lying to your family, to your tribe, to the people in your small town, the people who know you and do business with you not only today but for the rest of your lives. They're the ones who have to trust you. The human rule about lying is not don't lie, it's don't lie to your people. Lying to strangers, to enemies, and to the outgroup has never counted for as much, and in some cultures is expected. World War II made us all Americans, all a part of the in-group Americans for a couple of generations. Even as we moved out of those small towns, started doing most of our business with people we didn't know and wouldn't ever see again, and generally got more isolated. And an ethic of not lying to anybody did prevail for a while. But in the end, the lessons and bondings of history faded, and the constraints on lying, that you will ruin your business reputation among your only customers if you lie, or ruin your reputation in your small town if you lie, those things are very few these days. The current crisis of truth-telling in politics has to do mostly with polarization. 30 years ago, politicians dealt with their opponents and their supporters, yes, but now politicians deal with their supporters and their enemies. And you don't converse with your enemies, you wage war, and you lie. When we add this to winner take all, you have, well, American contemporary society, divided, polarized, and untruthful. 13 years ago, Karl Rove, that master wager of political war, said something remarkable to Ron Suskind, who reported it in the New York Times Magazine. Rove told Suskind that people like him, like Suskind, were what Rove calls the reality-based community, which Rove defined as people who believe that solutions emerge from your judicious study of discernible reality. That's not the way the world works anymore, said Rove. We're an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality. And while you're studying that reality, judiciously as you will, we'll act again and create a new reality, which you can study too, and that's how things will sort out. We're history's actors, said Rove, and you, all of you, will be left to just study what we do. The hubris is breathtaking. Do you belong to the reality-based community? Oh, come on. Do you belong to the reality-based community? Yes, so do I. And I'm proud of it. And that doesn't mean I don't intend to have some influence on that reality. Just look for me and a million other women next Saturday with my pink hat on. And and I know I'll see lots of you too. That also doesn't mean that I don't understand that diversities of insights and observations come from different cultures, but I do believe that there are facts and that accepting facts will make us free. I'm with former President and Unitarian John Adams, who said in 1770, when he had to convict free British soldiers in an unpopular move, he said, "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence." I believe, myself, and I understand it to be a belief, that it is and will be, in the end, more effective and more helpful to myself and those around me, and even to the society at large, and to the democracy, which I also believe to be the most just form of government, to be a part of the reality-based community. Therefore, I aim, and with my adopted spiritual father from afar, Jan Hus, I aim to seek the truth, learn the truth, love the truth, speak the truth, adhere to the truth, and defend the truth. I don't expect to have to do that unto death, but I do have to expect to do it every day for as long as I live. If you agree, here are some suggestions. First of all, speak the truth yourself. Work to yourself. Work at staying out of denial. Plant yourself firmly in the reality-based community. If that makes you anxious, learn to breathe. Make your own version of the serenity prayer that fits your theology and memorize it. You know, may I have the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I have, and the wisdom to know the difference. Learn about the common ways people fool themselves, such as confirmation bias and siloing, and resist them. Secondly, speak the truth among your own people, because in spite of the fact that we are kind of hardwired socially to tell the truth in our own little groups, we don't actually do that very well. Whenever researchers study lying in ordinary people, not political speech, but just everything from little white lies to fish whoppers, not only they, but the people they study who become aware of the lies that they're telling while they're being studied are astounded at the amount of lying that goes on. We tell lies to avoid hurting people's feelings, to give ourselves a little boost in the eyes of others, to tell a good story, to avoid problems, to get what we want without a fuss, all that sort of thing. Social lies, to spare someone's feelings, and self-enhancing lies, to make ourselves feel better without doing too much harm, are rampant. And the more we do them, the more we promote lies that actually do harm. The more we lie, the easier it is to lie. And the more people hear us lie, and let's face it, they often guess that they're being lied to, the more it makes it okay to lie. I'm not talking about telling the brutal truth to the person who asked you if their dress makes them look fat, of course. But there are ways to answer even a direct question like that without lying. Like, for instance, "Jane, I've made a new vow to myself. I'm not going to comment on anybody's weight, light or heavy. It's all in the eyes of the beholder. Do you like your dress? Work on it." Finally, a hard discipline that sometimes has consequences is to speak the truth to everybody, to strangers to outsiders, to political opponents, competitors, landlords, whoever. It is true that some people will take advantage of you, and more will not reciprocate but keep right on lying to you. This is one spiritual discipline of citizenship. It's one spiritual discipline of the belief that all persons, even people you like or dislike or oppose, have worth and dignity. It's one spiritual discipline of universalism, which at heart is the belief that we all come from one origin and we all have one destiny, and therefore we may dislike what people stand for, but we are bound together, and therefore we do not lie to them. It's an advanced practice. Consider it. 3 parts of speak the truth. Speak it to yourself, speak it to your friends, speak it even to your enemies. Secondly, defend the truth. When you hear or read something that you're sure is not true, speak up or comment. Do it by the simple statement, the fact is that, whatever. There's no point in calling a person a liar. First of all, everyone denies being a liar. You just put them and their supporters on the defensive. Calling someone a liar is an ineffective strategy in a post-truth world. Secondly, lying is a free, knowing act of speaking a non-truth. And you are an appropriate judge of what facts are demonstrable. But as a matter of fact, you have no knowledge of the inner life of a speaker. Our president-elect says many things that are demonstrably not true. But I do not actually know if he is deliberately lying, if he is deluded, if he is mistaken, or if his mental state makes him not free to tell the truth. And his supporters like him, not only in spite of the fact that he does it, but because of it. They've come to believe that the ability to lie demonstrates a person's power. So don't play. Thirdly, demand the truth, especially on the internet. I long ago lost track of the number of times during the last year of outrage that I had to comment on the Facebook page of a friend or a colleague. Almost all my Facebook friends are liberals and college-educated people, that this is a hoax, and some of them were real whoppers. This is a hoax, or this is satire, or Snopes says that this is incorrect. I know it's a lot of fun to be outraged, and it's a lot of fun to spread outrage, but before you click, before you repost, Google it, check the sources, ask who's funding this tidbit. Look for citations, supporting evidence, and more than one reputable reporting source. Teach your children the tricks of the trades of truth. And remind them of what your mother probably told you, which is, if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't. And its corollary, if it conforms to how horrible you think your enemies are, somebody may be messing with you. Don't fall for clickbait. Also, seek the truth, and do it not only within your comfort zone and philosophical silo, but outside of it. Make sure there's at least one place in your world where people you are fond of and can learn from are different enough from you that you will hear different truths from them. Evaluate them for yourself, but hear them from people you value. My Kung Fu school is a place like that for me, and I bet you have a place too. Your work lunch group, maybe, a conservative uncle, a mixed bag of a basketball team. Listen to some other news station every once in a while. Read columnists you know you will deplore with as open mind as you can achieve. Seeking truth in the same old places all the time leads to error. Finally, we need to pay for the truth. Good, independent journalism costs money. If you care about the truth, if you care about democracy, you need to pay for good journalism. The internet, with its all-free vibe, has put good, independent journalism in jeopardy, on paper and on the internet. We get what we pay for, which is another thing your mother probably told you, and we are now paying the price in truth for the freedom, because nobody's paying the price of journalism. Subscribe to your favorite news sources by giving them money, not just your email address. Join KUNM and KNME even if you don't watch or listen much. Upgrade your freebie sources. Take your ad blocker off. Truth is not free. It's important, this chalice, which harkens back to a man who died for his truth. It's important, this church, based in reason and honoring the truth. It's important, this community here, you, where we practice the virtues of truth-telling and truth-seeking because we want to live in a world which is often sorely lacking in truth and even in warmth. We live in a world which, in the words of John Huss, needs people who will seek the truth, listen to the truth, teach the truth, speak the truth, abide by the truth, and defend the truth every day of their lives.